John Fox, Bomb Drops, and Hood Shots this week on Fangirl 2020X. Honestly, writing the intros and outros to these is like the second worst part. The first worst is when my laptop fucks up and I have to reshoot this episode all over again. Hey, it's Wendy. Welcome to another round of time-delayed first impressions of games on Sega systems in the order I bought them. I think the conceit of this whole thing is a lot flimsier than I realized, but there's no one doing it now. I feel like Joe Pickett trying to explain what IMGs are every week. Oh wait, yeah, the games. They were right here all along. I'm gonna keep looking at the fuck anyway. Gods, made by the Bitmap Brothers in 1991, released on the Mega Drive / Genesis a year later, and then in Sweden and Japan a year later. Still, Gods is a bizarre side-scroller that stars you as some supposedly ancient god, even though there's this almost but not really futuristic air to the proceedings. I'm not gonna lie, I got this and Speedball 2 because John Fox did the soundtrack. From the outset, you'll notice movement is clunky but deliberate, and luckily all your weapons are projectiles because I can't imagine having to inch up to some of the enemies to kill them. Progression is largely based on finding keys and unlocking doors, or in some cases, unlocking treasure chests filled with power-ups or bonuses. There's something strangely choreographed about the way enemies appear, and it makes sense with the consideration you have to give your movement. There's one particular part in the first stage where after a while, you remember to turn around at an exact point and blast whatever's flying at you. Switches are scattered throughout, but more often than not, you'll have to learn what they do by trial and error. As an example, and I stole this from a walkthrough because I can't imagine figuring it out myself, the first stage rewards you by counting switches as you progress through the stage and hitting them in a certain order, almost like a code. In this case, the code is 4, 3, 4, 5, and 7. It'll make this platform slide out of nowhere, allowing you to push this loose brick and open up a room full of treasure. It's pretty satisfying, though I can't imagine most players would figure this out on their own. If you're trying for that particular secret, it pays to play the first stage over and over again until you get the hang of it. Thing is, you have to get to that loose brick next to the exit in 2 minutes or it won't work. Training yourself to speak this game's specific language of side-scrolling choreography will be a big help in general. Anyway, eventually you'll be fighting bosses. Real tough bosses. But being a European side-scroller, the hill is steep and the sense of accomplishment pretty decent. Gods is punishing, but in a way you'd assume a game like this was meant to be. The only real irritants are trying to memorize which power-up does what and which key unlocks which things. I think easily irritated people wouldn't be into this, but I was, which is weird because I have, no chill. So much of the game is horseshit masochism, but it's weirdly addicting, both in a gameplay sense and how compelling the overall vibe is. Clearly the music is kind of bonkers. The incongruousness of it all, and the awkward mechanic of everything, especially like the picking up items thing, which I kind of hate but kind of like, it makes it feel really interesting. It's not super rare, and I guess I recommend it. Anyway, let's talk about Championship Pro-Am, or Championship Pro-Am, if you will, and I won't. I bought this because it's inexpensive, and it got a 10 out of 10 from Sega16.com, and I assumed it was multiplayer, and I already had a bunch of 6-button controllers on the way. But it's just RC Pro-Am. I mean, it's great, it's fine, but the RC Pro-Am series has been inexplicably hostile toward multiplayer. Although the Game Boy version allows 4 players, it requires 4 cartridges, 4 Game Boys, and a tap. You're telling me the Genesis couldn't handle a split screen or something? Maybe visibility would be an issue in a game like this, but proportionally they could have even done a 4-player mode and kept the aspect ratio normal. For those of you not in the know, you drive a remote control car around a track a couple of times, swinging around curves, avoiding road hazards, picking up whatever upgrades or bonuses you can, and occasionally gathering weapons to knock other cars around. Missiles fire ahead, bombs stay behind. In an odd sense, the projectile nature of the weaponry feels like a proto-Mario Kart thing. The sense of speed is just right, the controls are exactly as they intend to be, and things move quickly enough that if you fuck up and start over, it's not like you've wasted a ton of time. But really, it's the same game as before with better graphics, and now the bonus tiles you can pick up spell out Champion instead of Nintendo. Oh, and there are more opponents, though at first I didn't notice. I think I'd rather just deal with the NES version or use the multiple Game Boy copies I have to play that with 3 other people. Sloshed. Wikipedia even lumps this in with the NES games page. It feels lacking. One saving grace? Laying on the horn. Not only is it hilarious, but the computer opponents are in meat space and have no way of punching you on the shoulder. I kinda thought this episode was pretty diverse, but it took until I almost wrapped up the script to realize they were 2 vehicle-based games. The big difference is one's just okay, and this one's just okay. Action Fighter seems like an odd step sideways from a company that released the triumphant Monaco GP. It's clearly meant to run alongside Spy Hunter, but it also wants too much all at once. Using a motorcycle and a car and a plane all in the course of one stage is a lot. It almost hints at Outrun Europa. Almost. Action Fighter is pretty ambitious for something released so close to launch. It definitely exemplifies how the Master System had better chops than the NES, at least at first. I had no idea, but when you input your name at the beginning, you can enter specific things that act as cheats. Kinda cool. The game is fairly fun as long as you're surviving, and like Spy Hunter, you're allowed unlimited crashes until a counter hits 0, at which point you'll start going through lives instead. And once you hit that point, you're pretty much fucked. A lot of people ask me, Wendy, is that the real Sega truck? And I say, we're not speaking right now, so I'd rather not talk about it. Hit detection feels a little off. The wannabe Xevious portion is no Xevious, and sometimes the cloud cover gets annoying. In all honesty, I've barely ever finished the first stage. It's fairly punishing and easy to get distracted enough to run afoul of the hit detection. Again, it sounds like I'm bitching and bitching and bitching, but it's cheap and probably worth it, and I don't know, maybe it'd make a good party game? For whatever reason, this has been tougher to write about than most, mostly because it's kind of anomalous. At this point in time, if Sega and automobiles were in the same sentence, you'd assume it'd be in the context of super scalar tech. Action Fighter apes Spy Hunter 3 years after the fact, and the arcade version never left Japan. It's never been re-released since, and odder still, the Master System version came out a few weeks before the arcade one in Japan. I can't speak to the other ports, but this version personifies an early Master System title more than most. In a way, there's sort of this tiered structure to Master System games if you take the rarity and the current price into consideration. The lowest tier would be all the sports games with great in the title. Some of the Lycon games, Monopoly and Shanghai, which is why I kind of love it, because it's like Shanghai's cheap, and I like it a lot, and it's cheap. And I'm a cheap date. Action Fighter would be on the next tier up. And then 2 tiers up from that would be Golvelius and Spellcaster and R-Type. Does that make sense? Anyway, the next episode is going to be for Game Gear games, if you're into that sort of thing, or at least if you want to see it in 720p or whatever. So subscribe or like or comment in that order. Bye for now. I seem to have made it across the finish line, which is